Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Shark. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I've had a pretty exciting weekend actually. As everyone knows, I've been super hyped for the Batman. It's been one of my most hyped films in the past couple of years. I saw it. I don't typically give my initial thoughts because I tend to speak in hyperbole, but for the most part, I really liked it. I know that for sure. I'm trying not to speak in hyperbole there.
Well, we've talked in the past about the honeymoon effect of watching movies, where
Right.
when you go to the movies and you're with an audience, and if the audience is really into it, it can change how good you think a movie is. And then when you watch it several months later at home, you're like, oh, this movie was nowhere near as good as I remember it being. So it's kind of this you have to kind of let your brain process what you just saw to really know what you think of it. So
Yeah. Um,
um,
I
that's
believe
cool
it
that you liked
hits.
it.
Yeah.
Most of the reviews I've heard have been pretty good. I've heard some complaints that the third act drags a little bit because it's like 3 hours long. But
I can see that there's kind of like a false ending thing, and everyone says that it should have just ended at the false ending.
yeah,
Um, but no, I actually really liked it. It's kind of a combination of three of my favorite Batman stories, that being a Long Halloween, because I mean at this point every Batman movie is some sort of adaptation of Long Halloween. Um, there's a little bit of Zero Year in there, so that's really cool. And Earth One, that was a surprise, but there's some Earth One in there, which is cool. I believe it hits HBO Max maybe like towards the end of April or something like that. So that'll be fun to be able to rewatch it from the leisure of my own home and be able to formulate a more grounded opinion than what I'm feeling right now, because I almost want to say it's on par with The Dark Knight, but it's very like I don't actually want to say that.
yeah. I'm debating whether to go to see it in the theater or should I wait till HBO Max? I don't know.
Yeah. But in other news, I was raised on Law and Order, and they just came out with the revival, the 21st season, 12 years later, uh, and it's like true to form Law and Order. So if
Oh,
anyone,
they're doing new episodes.
they're doing new episodes of Law and Order,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, Anthony Anderson is back as the senior detective. And did you ever watch Burn Notice?
Briefly, yeah.
Uh, Michael Weston is the junior detective, is Anthony Anderson's partner.
Okay.
And
Was he the main character from Burn Notice?
yes,
Okay. Yeah, I
um,
used to love Law and Order back in the day. I probably stopped watching it after shortly after I can't think of the actor's name, but the one that played Lenny Briscoe, the when he
oh,
passed
Jerry
away.
Orbach.
Yeah, when he passed away, I watched it for a little bit longer after that, but um that was probably around when I stopped. You ever heard of a Brandon Bird on the internet?
No,
He does paintings of he does weird pop culture paintings, and he does a lot of Law and Order paintings. They're hilarious. I'll have to send you a
really?
link. Yeah,
Sure. Uh,
it's really funny. He did a coloring book. um I think they gave it to Jerry Orbach one time on a talk show,
oh
and
gosh.
he does SVU Valentine's Day cards.
Okay, that's funny.
It's really funny.
But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you like Law and Order, watch Law and Order. But how are you doing today? How was your week?
I'm doing pretty good. I had to go to a church activity last night, and on the way home, I realized, oh, I have to watch a movie for the live stream. I better do
Right,
that.
right.
So I was up late watching a movie, but we'll talk about that at the end of the live stream. So busy week, things get away from you, then you're like, oh, I've got to do stuff. So
I'll be honest. I watched Blazing Saddles and then immediately hopped on the hopped on the stream. So
yeah, yeah, it's tough. So uh, Well, we'll get to he maybe do it at the end. So,
Mhm.
all right. So tonight, I thought it would be fun just to maybe once a month start doing some top 10 lists. Because there's a lot of things that Caleb and I agree on, and there's other stuff that we don't. And so I think it's fun to get our different lists. So it's really a top 20 list.
In a sense, yeah.
So tonight we're talking about the top 10 Marvel teams. Um, so initially I was thinking just in the comic books, but then Caleb asked if he could include some stuff that's not on the comic books, and I said, you know what, sure, why not? So there's going to be a couple
Yeah.
things that are not exactly comic book related, but for the most part, these are comic book teams.
Yeah, I
And
think I've only got like 2 that aren't of comic books.
right,
What it comes down to is, and I'm sure this will be a thing whenever we do top 10 DC teams, is you definitely are more of a Marvel person than I am, so I'm less familiar with teams in general, honestly.
right. So if we were doing top 10 DC teams, I might be able to name 5 teams total in
Right,
DC.
exactly.
So yeah, it's going to be quite different, and we will eventually get to DC top 10. So so let's get our list. This is a lot to go over. I had so many that I couldn't fit them all in a top 10. So we're going to do some honorable mentions to start off with. Um, so, and Caleb also had an honorable mention. So I'm going to
Yes.
show his first.
Yes. So my honorable mention is Marvel versus Capcom. Just in general, I'm a big fan of the game series, and I'm a big fan of fighting games. And so whenever you're talking about Marvel teams, I really can't help but mention this crossover just because it's something that I grew up with and I've always loved, and there's something so cool about seeing Ryu, Mega Man, Dante, Albert Wesker, everyone getting together with Wolverine, Deadpool, uh, Magneto, Taskmaster is in it. So and Sentinel in every game is awesome. So I just wanted to. At first, I mentioned it as a joke, and like, no, what? No, I actually want to bring up Marvel versus Capcom because that's a cool honorable mention. So yeah, that is my honorable mention.
Awesome. So everything on my list is from the comic books, and I had like 13 or 14. So we're gonna go through my honorable mentions very quickly. First up is Uncanny X Force by Rick Remender. Um, you see the lineup there on the screen. You got Wolverine. I like Wolverine for the most part, as long as he's written correctly. He's a fun character. Deadpool, who is hit or miss for me. When he's written well, it's great, but most people do not know how to write Deadpool. Uh, Psylocke, a character I've never liked before. Phantom X, a character I've never liked before. Archangel, a character I've never liked before. So this is a team I should not like. And Rick Remender, by the end of it, I loved all these characters. Like now I'm a big Psylocke fan.
Mhm.
And I'd read Psylocke for years, and I was just like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and
And
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
it's a great run. Just briefly, it starts with them going on a mission. Basically, their mission is to go do the tasks that the X-Men won't do, the things that get your hands bloody.
Mhm.
Um, so the first mission they hear that, oh, Apocalypse is back. We have to go kill Apocalypse. He's been reborn again. Let's go do it. They get there. He's a little kid. It's like, what do we do? It's the age old question of, and we won't use the name here, but if you could kill somebody when there was a baby to prevent a world war, do you do it?
Right.
Which
Why not kill Thanos when he's a baby?
they've done a comic book of, which I have not read. I really want to, Cosmic Ghost Rider. So maybe that'll be he maybe do it for 1 week, but this team is great. There's a story they do called we've all heard of the Dark Phoenix saga. They do the Dark Angel saga, and it's one of my favorite
Okay.
X-Men stories of all time. So great team. If you could take characters I don't like and make me like them by the end, that's always awesome. So really fun team.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's the interesting thing whenever I was going through looking at stuff is the lineups are not necessarily my favorite, but like the storylines that the lineups are in and like making me like the characters, that's really how I, came up with my list. It's not just like, cool characters, it's well written characters.
right. So this next team is kind of a fun one for me. Um, hey, we disappeared. Awesome. We're still learning how all these layouts and stuff work, so bear with us tonight. Exiles. Is this a team you're familiar with at all, Caleb? Or
A little bit, not too much.
so basically, and I'm surprised Marvel has not announced this for the movies right now, of all the multiverse stuff they are doing. But basically, they took Blink from Age of Apocalypse, and she was summoned by this group called the Time Brokers, and they're like, "Hey, all these alternate dimensions are getting broken. Your team, we're going to pull a group of people from different multiverses and send them in to fix it." Basically, what If was trying to do by the end of it, the series on Disney Plus, and I was like, why didn't you just use the Exiles? You know, you already have this team in the comic books that does this. The lineup's constantly changing. People die, people join. There's even a great Chuck Austin run in the middle of this, which, if you don't know, Chuck Austin is one of the notorious X-Men writers a lot of people hate, but he has a pretty fun Hyperion story where basically Hyperion joins the Exiles, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to save these worlds. I'm just going to conquer them." And so a lot of fun. So I'm surprised they have not brought back the Exiles in the Krakoa era, but there you go.
Yeah. Now, is Hyperion? I wasn't too familiar. Is Hyperion a mutant?
No, so you can have non-mutants on this team. Like they've had
Okay.
Spider-Man 2099 on the team. So Hyperion, if you don't know, he's a member of Squadron Supreme, which is basically Marvel's version of the Justice League, and Hyperion is their version of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So Squadron Supreme, I'm surprised they have not announced for MCU also, but a lot of people be like, "Oh, you're just copying DC," but that's kind of the point. They are definitely copying DC. So anyhow, that's the Exiles. Next on my list, I really wanted to put these guys on my top 10. They just did not make it. The New Warriors. So if you don't know, this was a team that popped up in the 90s. They took a couple existing characters like Firestar and Speedball and Nova, added some new ones like Night Thrasher. Really fun team, really great stories. They never really got their just due. Both of us love Nova.
Yes, yeah, I love awesome. Nova so much.
So I just want to give them a shout out. They have a bad rep now because they started the Civil War.
Right. I forgot that was them.
Yeah. So Marvel kind of fixed their rep in the Avengers Initiative story, but I thought they could have done so much more with it. And now I don't think Marvel knows what to do with the New Warriors. So they're just kind of in limbo. They had a TV show that they were planning, and for reasons I won't get into on tonight, it got nobody wanted to touch it.
Yeah. Well, wasn't Squirrel Girl going to be the main character too?
Yeah, which is weird because she's on Great Lakes Avengers, not, and it was like a mix of the TV show was going to be a mix of Great Lakes Avengers and the New Warriors. I almost put Great Lakes Avengers as an honorable mention and then decided not to. So, all right, so let's get to the actual top 10. We will start with Caleb's number 10, and that is the Howling Commandos.
Yes. So the Howling Commandos, I'm a big fan of like war comic books. That's probably why I have such a fascination uh, with like the Suicide Squad, because the original Suicide Squad wasn't like a bunch of villains or anything like that. It was um, just a World War II comic book. And I'm a big fan of Dum Dum Dugan. Just that character, I'm a big fan of him. Uh, and and whenever I say Howling Commandos, like I'm a big fan of like the 616, but also like Ultimate Howling Commandos. Just every iteration of Howling Commandos is always super fascinating to me because it's just like a bunch of normal guys, and occasionally they'll team up with the super soldier, and to me that's super cool. In fact, I think I'm trying to remember what the storyline's called, but it's a Captain America storyline. Together Again is what it's called, and it's just them raiding Baron von Strucker's like fortress or something like that, and it's super cool. There's really not much to say about the Howling Commandos because it's so basic. Um, but no, my number 10 is Howling Commandos.
And I was kind of annoyed that I don't think they ever popped up on Agents of Shield. I
No,
remember. I
they
know they were
didn't.
on Peggy Carter. Um, I always thought it'd been fun if they had done an episode of Agents of Shield where they found like the comic book accurate version of Nick Fury and found out, oh, the current Nick Fury is just carrying on the name from this one, and this one's still alive. They bring back all the Howling Commandos back together and have this mission,
Mhm.
and then you could kind of set up this whole there's this the World War II group. Um, I just think thought that was there's a lot of missed opportunities with Agents of Shield. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
right. Yeah. Plus, like, I love Neil McDonough as an actor, and I love
Oh
Neil
yeah,
McDonough's Dum Dum Dugan. So
yeah. I
just
wish, yeah.
more of
That's why I wish
that.
we had more Captain America World War II movie stuff because I want to see more of them. So
Mhm.
all right. So my number 10, if I can find them, is the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six are awesome. They are, I want to say, the very first villainous team that ever fought Spider Man.
I
Um,
did he fight the Enforcers?
oh, the Enforcers! I always forget about them. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this was very on like in the first year or so of Spider Man, and one of the annuals he fought Sinister Six. Um, One of my problems with comic books right now is when I started reading in the 90s, I could keep track of everything. And now I'm like, oh, yeah, the Sinister Six. I'd rattle off the members, and then, oh, Craven died, so Hobgoblin took his place. Then when Sandman betrayed him, they put Gog on the team. Got it. I know who the Sinister Six are. Then I did a quiz the other night on Sporkle. There's like 100 members, and I'm like, who are these people? What are these? Why did y'all ruin this? So
We'll get to that.
yeah, so the Sinister Six, the classic Sinister Six,
Mhm.
are awesome. And we almost got that in the most recent Spider-Man movie. It was really close. And I know Sony's been trying to do a Sinister Six movie for a while. So
I kind of saw No Way Home as you're talking about No Way Home, right?
yes,
I kind of saw it as kind of Ultimate Six,
yeah,
where the sixth member of Ultimate Six was Peter Parker.
okay.
Yeah, and so with Peter Parker constantly getting in his way in No Way Home, I kind of saw himself as like the sixth member of the Ultimate Six.
I saw a joke online that said, "What are you talking about? There were six there. Just one of them got lost in a bar the whole movie."
That's true. That's true.
So there we go. All right, so let's get to Caleb's number 9. If I can remember how this thing works.
So my number 9 is the team from Shadowland. It doesn't have an official name, uh, but essentially it's kind of like what we now know as the Defenders, because in the Netflix shows, this is kind of what they did. It's essentially Heroes for Hire with a bunch of other additions like Elektra and Spider-Man and Dagger, I believe. Um, for those of you who haven't read Shadowland, it's a very complicated storyline that involves Daredevil being possessed by a demon and kind of taking over Hell's Kitchen, and so all these street level heroes. And I believe this is after Dark Reign, and so after Dark Reign, a lot of the big names are kind of recuperating, and so all the street level heroes have to deal with this Daredevil, this possessed Daredevil, and so there's Luke Cage. I know this is where they introduced a new Power Man, um, and so I think this would be really cool for them to maybe build up to in the MCU. Now that we're getting Daredevil back and Echo is becoming a major player, and we get Moon Knight at the end of the month. I think it'd be cool for them to kind of build up to a sort of Shadowland thing.
Yeah, they're being very hush hush what they're doing with those Netflix characters. So I'd be very interested to see what they do.
Did you see that Christian Ritter? She posted a picture on Instagram, and she's got like her hair from Jessica Jones back, and so people are
Oh,
thinking, yeah. So, um, but yeah, if you haven't read the Shadowland storyline, I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorites. I'm not too big into the company wide crossovers, but if you give me like a small sect of superheroes, like this is the street level heroes crossover, um, then that's all I need. And so my number 9 is the team from Shadowland.
yeah, I have not read Shadowland, so I will have to check that out sometime. Next on my list, number 9 for me is Generation X.
Oh, that's a
Um,
good pick.
yeah, Generation X. That was when I was still actively reading every month. A new team. And what's weird about Generation X is it went for about 4 issues being this new team, and they didn't quite get along. They were still learning the ropes, and then they jumped to the Age of Apocalypse storyline, where if you don't know what the Age of Apocalypse is, this is really quickly, basically an alternate timeline where Legion, who is Xavier's son, was trying to kill Magneto, screwed up and killed Xavier back in the 60s. So then the X-Men were never formed. So this is a world where Apocalypse conquered everything because the X-Men were not there to stop him. So in that world, Generation X became Generation Next. And I should have put Generation Next on this list instead of Generation X, because that team is awesome. They are cutthroat. Their personalities are so much more developed. They get along so much better as a team, and I feel like Generation X never quite reached that in the main timeline. The Generation Next, I don't want to spoil it here, but it's one of my favorite miniseries. If you like your comics a little dark and hopeless, that one is amazing. We should really do a top 10 favorite comic book panels one week.
Oh, yeah, I would love to do that.
Generation Next has one of my favorite sequences. So really cool team. And it's like Marvel's kind of forgotten about Generation X. I mean, they've used them a little bit at Krakoa, but it's kind of like Marvel remembered, oh, yeah, New Mutants, that's our young team, not Generation X. So now they've been focusing more on New Mutants instead. And it's a shame because this team was really cool. First 25 issues are really great, and then editorial, as usual, kind of screwed everything up. So
This is going to be weird, but did you ever watch that Generation X TV movie?
I did. At the time, I loved it
Oh,
because
okay.
at the time we didn't get a superhero movie. So the fact that they made one, I'm sure if I watch it now, it's absolutely god awful.
I mean,
Um,
it is. I saw it probably about 10 years ago, like on YouTube,
yeah,
before copyright was a thing. Uh, from the lens of it being in the 90s and before, like Blade and X-Men and all that, I liked it. It was all right.
yeah. I mean, it's you
Matt
gotta
Matt Matt
understand.
Frewer was great.
Yeah, you gotta understand that back then, I'm trying to remember when it came out
It's
because things
96 or
changed once.
something.
Yeah, when things changed once Blade came out and X Men. It started changing the way the movies worked, and then once Spider Man hit, everything changed.
Oh yeah.
So, but Generation X, awesome team that I wish Marvel would get the band back together because that's a fun team. Bring back Scott Lobdell and just let him him and Chris Bocello just go crazy on it. So that's my number 9. So let's move on to Caleb's number 8. I really should have numbered these because it makes it really hard to find them when I want to pull them up. Here it is.
All right, so my number 8 is the X-Force from Deadpool 2. So first of all, Deadpool 2 is just one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. And I really enjoyed the X-Force. I think it was for the themes of the movie, it was a great like introduction. And of course, everyone loves the high winds scene with a Shatterstar and Peter, just the whole crew. It's Invisible Man, which
Vanisher.
it Vanisher. That's right. It took me three viewings to notice that was Brad Pitt. But yeah, and then along with this X-Force, I kind of include like the ending team as kind of a part of it with Domino, Cable, Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Yukio, which Hi Yukio is something that I'll just say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta be careful that I'm talking about the team and not just the movie because I love the movie. But yeah, whenever I'm thinking about the X-Force, which I do want to read Remender's Run because whenever you talk to me about it, I looked it up and it looks really interesting. But for right now, this is my X-Force.
So if you don't know, this team is loosely based off of the Ecstatics comic books. The guy in the back there behind Deadpool, between Deadpool and Domino, I can't think of his name. He's from Ecstatics.
Okay.
And Ecstatics, when it first started out, was called X-Force, and they changed the name to Ecstatics. And the running gag of the comic book was most of the team would die every issue. They'd have to replace them. So when this happens to Deadpool, it's a reference to that comic book where most of the team is going to die.
You know what? I might actually want Ecstatics. I might actually want to read that because that's part of the. I think part of it is that the X-Force just kind of remind me of the in Deadpool 2, kind of remind me of the Suicide Squad. And so if Ecstatics is like that, I actually might want to pick that up because that's one of my favorite things.
It's a great story. It's bleak, and they just recently brought Ecstatics back, so I'm pretty excited.
Okay.
That almost made my list as an honorable mention. Ecstatics. So yeah, definitely check out Ecstatics X-Force if you like this team and like stories where characters don't make it out. That's a good one.
Yeah.
The next one on my list, my number 8. These are spoilers from 30 years ago. They may be MCU spoilers one day, so I'm sorry if I'm about to spoil you.
Here we go.
Old spoiler. But my number 8 is the Thunderbolts. If you don't know, if you can look at the picture there, the Thunderbolts were a team made up of the Masters of Evil, the Avengers' arch nemesis, and I'm surprised they haven't done them in the movie to set up the Thunderbolts. I mean, we've had a couple characters here and there.
I think they are setting up the Thunderbolts though.
I don't know if they're setting up the Thunderbolts or if they're setting up the Dark Avengers, or they're kind of the same thing almost.
Yeah.
But basically, what happened in the comic books was the heroes during the Onslaught story got shipped off to a different dimension. So everybody thought they were dead. So all of a sudden, these new superheroes, the Thunderbolts, showed up to take their place. It is secretly the bad guys posing as the good guys to conquer the world. And it's fun because some of them decide, you know what, we like being heroes. We don't want to conquer the world. And the other half are like, no, we want to conquer the world. And so they kind of rebel, and there's infighting, and eventually Hawkeye becomes the leader of the team. And just a really fun redemption story. Baron Zemo is an awesome character.
Yes.
I love him. He's the only reason I've been tempted to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the Baron Zemo stuff. So, so we'll see. Hopefully, the MCU will get to these guys here soon because they're awesome.
I think they will because people don't like to admit it, but the MCU in a way does copy DC a lot. But they tend to get to the punch first because they said, Captain America was originally going to be a Serpent Society movie. Civil War was. And then they announced Dawn of Justice and like, well, we're going to do Civil War. And then Flash is going to be multiverse. Well, we're going to do No Way Home. And so I would think the Thunderbolts would kind of be like their answer to the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, and there's been different versions of the Thunderbolts over the years, and like some of the later ones I don't like as much. I want the original story, but I don't know if they'll do that. So
no, they'd probably do it just like Thunderbolt Ross, like it's named after him.
No. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and it would have like your U.S. agents.
Yeah, so it'd be more like the Dark Avengers.
Yeah, it would be more like Dark Avengers, but they'd be named the Thunderbolts because of Thunderbolt Ross. Maybe that's where you introduce Red Hulk.
Yeah, Red Hulk. I'm almost positive Red Hulk is coming very soon.
Yes,
probably won't get She-Hulk, but it's definitely next 3 years or so. Red Hulk should be running around.
Yeah, he has to be.
Especially if Mark Ruffalo's like, I'm done playing the Hulk.
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna use Red Hulk now. So, all right. So that was my number 8. So now we're gonna go to Caleb's number 7. Give me 1 second. Oh, that almost went to the wrong one. Dead Air is awesome. Okay, here we go.
Dan Abnett's Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, this is a follow-up to remember when I was talking about Shadowland and how I don't like company-wide crossovers, but you give me a small sect. Well, the cosmic crossover Annihilation, which is my favorite Marvel crossover of all time. The Abnett Landing run kind of came out of that, and this was actually, if I recall correctly, this was actually the origin of the Guardians of the Galaxy as we know them now. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're a bigger Guardians fan than I am, so correct me if I'm wrong.
So some of them showed up in Annihilation, but they weren't a team yet. Then the follow-up was Conquest, I want to say, with
Annihilation Conquest, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when they formed a team. It was almost like the Suicide Squad. Some of them didn't make it out of that mission. And then when that was over, they were like, oh, Adam Warlock's back. We should... And what happened at the end of that story is starting to open rifts in space and time. We need to form a team to stop what's coming out of these rifts. And that's where the Guardians of the Galaxy came from.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean these characters are just some of my favorites. I don't know what it is, but I have like this big fascination with Gamora, and I really want more of her in the films because I don't of the characters that we've gotten in the films. I feel like Gamora is the one that we haven't gotten
They well
as much
see,
as I want.
she was not the original choice to play her. And I can't think of her name.
So,
The one,
Zoe Saldana.
yeah, Zoe Saldana was not the original choice. It was the girl that used to be on House. What is her name?
Olivia Wilde.
Yes, she was the original choice, and she turned it down. I think she would have been a much better.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that her being a lot better actually. Oh, I kind of wish I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah, sorry. Whoops.
yeah. But yeah, and honestly, this is probably the only Guardians run that I'm a big fan of.
So, if for those who don't read the comic books, and I'll get more into this a little bit later, this was a great run. It was a spin-off kind of the Nova series. So you had two cosmic books, Nova and this, and that was it. And they ran for a while, and then I don't know who at Marvel decided to pull the plug. Somebody did. They canceled both titles, which was a shame because they were both like the best titles that Marvel was putting out. And they killed them off. They killed off Star-Lord, they killed off Nova. And they were dead for a while, and then what are your feelings on Brian Michael Bendis?
I think when he's in his wheelhouse, he's really good. But a lot of times, like companies don't keep him in his wheelhouse. So I think like he's really good at street level stuff. Daredevil is one of my favorite comic book runs of all time. He's great on Ultimate Spider-Man, but you give him something like Guardians of the Galaxy or and his Avengers actually wasn't that bad either, but you give him Guardians of the Galaxy or Superman, I mean, he doesn't know how to write like that much power.
I think that when he was starting out and he was writing Ultimate Spider-Man and Daredevil, he was hungry to prove himself, and Jessica Jones and all that stuff.
Sam Twitch.
Yeah, and I think he really told some great stories. Not everything was perfect, but for the most part, pretty good. Once he became super popular and like took over the Avengers and stuff, I feel like he kind of became, I could write anything and I could tackle anything. And they just kept giving the keys to all these different, X-Men, Guardians of the Galaxy, and whatever. And he just was not the right choice.
Well, not only that, but like he's kind of like he's your golden boy, and so you give him whatever he wants. And if he wants a lot of stuff, you give him a lot of stuff. And so he kind of spread himself really thin too.
Yes, he was writing a ton of titles, and so then he went. Just to get a little sidetracked here, he went over to DC and wrote Superman, I think Legion of Superheroes and stuff, and it has not been great. So
well, he's not even at DC anymore. He was part of that Exodus.
Well, I think he still has a couple of titles, but he's not on Superman anymore. He's not on Legion. But
he's probably still on like his Wonder Comic stuff with like Young Justice and stuff.
Yeah, he's on something. But like I said, I'm not a DC guy, so this is not my area of expertise. I don't think he's fully gone, but he doesn't have the power that he had. And just to get even more sidetracked, everything at DC right now, Marvel too, is kind of chaos. Warner Brothers is going through a buyout right now, so a lot of them don't know if they're going to have jobs in a year. So a lot of them just don't care right now.
Yeah.
So it is mass chaos at DC. But enough of that. So let's see. Let me get this off the screen. My number 7 is a title I'm amazed that they have not done yet in the MCU. And that's Next Wave.
I knew it. I thought about putting Next Wave on, but I knew you would. So
yeah, Next Wave. I don't even know how to explain Next Wave. Next Wave is a group of misfit heroes. You see right there in the middle is Monica Rambeau from WandaVision. That they are put together by this group. I think they were called the Silent, or no, the Beyond Corporation. And they realized that the Beyond Corporation was up to no good, so they rebelled against them. But this is like, again, I'm having trouble describing them. On the left,
I've never been able to describe Next Wave. I can never recommend it because I can't like fully.
So just to go through the team real quick. On the left, you have Machine Man. He's basically Bender. He's a drunk robot. Next to him, you have Eliza Bloodstone, who hunts monsters. Monica Rambeau, who always thinks she's in charge because she's been on the Avengers, so obviously she knows better than everybody else. The guy with the star on his shirt is the captain because he wanted to call himself Captain Bleep. They never said what he was trying to say. To beat him up and wash his mouth out with soap, and it's very silly. It's a very silly comic book. Lastly, you have Boom Boom or Meltdown or Tabitha, whatever name she's going by this month, and they basically took this old X-Force character and basically turned her into Paris Hilton. So like they're fighting, and she's over there on the phone, and she at one point she tries to spell her name and she can't spell it right. It's ridiculous. I love it. The first issue they fight Fin Fang Foom, the giant dragon who has purple pants on. He's always had purple pants on for some reason. And part of the fight, I think he grabs Machine Man and crams him down. No, I think it was Meltdown. Tabitha grabs her and he goes, "I'm gonna put you in my pants," and crams her down the pants, and everybody's freaking out and stuff. It's hilarious.
I will tell you exactly why they haven't done Next Wave in the MCU yet. It's because I don't think they know how, or they don't like have. I think they know that they can't do it right.
It's very silly. There's a spoof of Nick Fury named Dirk Anger. He's the one hunting Next Wave. Yeah, I wanted, if they ever made this back in the day, I know I wanted the guy from Psych, Lasseter, to play.
Oh yeah,
Dirk Anger. It would have been so much fun.
You know what would be cool? So they've got the Harley Quinn show on HBO Max. Like they could probably do Next Wave sort of in animation.
Yeah, I could see
like on Hulu or something.
Next Wave as either animated, or I could see it like highly stylized, like the Cowboy Bebop live action show.
Oh yeah.
I could see something like that where it's just. And anytime James Gunn doesn't ask me anything, I'm always like, "So how about Next Wave?" Because I think he would be awesome. Directed Next Wave. So, and this was created by Warren Ellis. He's currently on the outs of the comic book industry. So, I don't know if they'll ever bring it back. I know that in one of the recent Ultimate series, they started dropping hints about Next Wave and bring some of the characters back, but no one's really ever brought it officially back. It's such a good series. You got a baby MODOK running around. It's great. Anyhow, that's my number 7. I could go on about Next Wave all day. There's a storyline where they're still in Captain America's pee to try to make a super soldier serum. Oh, it's so funny. Okay, on to Caleb's number 6. Caleb's number 6 is
Marvel Knights. So, in case y'all haven't figured out yet, I'm a big fan of the Underworld, the New York City street level heroes. It's kind of what I grew up on. That's kind of what got me the most interested in Marvel. The Marvel Knights are super interesting because it is a team that Daredevil put together. And it's just them hunting the Punisher. It's a Shang-Chi, Dagger, Black Widow, and I believe there's one more that I can't think of. But yeah, the team starts off with Punisher on the team, and pretty quickly he goes AWOL, so they have to abandon like their original mission and just go after him, and that's what the 15 issue run really is about. Um, and what the Marvel Knights, where the name comes from, is that kind of initiative that they came out with back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I believe Blade was on Marvel Knights as well. Ghost Rider too. But it's kind of like this was like their more serious, they're more adult. This was probably as close to Max as they had gotten before they went ahead with Marvel Max. And no, the Marvel Knights are just some of my favorites. It's basically, it's just, this really is the team where it's just my favorite characters and less about the story. Like, it's just about my favorite characters coming together and interacting and hunting after a character that I think is really hilarious when you break him down. I think Punisher's hilarious when you like break him down.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read Garth Ennis's Punisher run,
I
the
have.
original before the back series.
Oh no, then I haven't. I've only read Max.
There's a part where he's fighting Wolverine, and he shoots Wolverine in the face with shotguns, runs over with a steamroller like a Looney Tunes cartoon, all this ridiculous stuff. And so Wolverine, I think he gets like Spider-Man and Daredevil to go help him hunt down the Punisher. And the Punisher's just waiting for him, like in his van. And they're like, all right, Punisher, come out. And he just opens the back door, and he's got Bruce Banner tied up. It like makes him mad, and he sets the Hulk loose on him. It's so awesome. Punisher's, I think Punisher's, when he's written correctly, he's a lot of fun.
Punisher is like, if Marvel was a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, Punisher is that guy. The one who just refuses to cooperate and does his own thing, and everybody hates him, but he's a part of the team, so you have to accept him.
Yeah, it's like when he shows up in Civil War in the comic books, and he just starts shooting the Thunderbolts and killing them. They're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What? They're the bad guys," So, all right. So on to my number 6, and that would be The Runaways.
Oh,
The Runaways are a terrible TV show, but a great comic. Actually, I never watched the TV show. I can't really comment on it, but
I've seen the first season, so I can.
Basically, the comic book is a group of kids are brought together every year by their parents. They don't know why. And then they discover that their parents are kind of supervillains, but they're kind of in this freaky cult where they sacrifice a virgin once a year. And you're like, what? So they run away. They're literally runaways. And then they start finding out that they all have powers or skills that they've obtained from their parents. And so they decide to make their own superhero team, but maybe one of them isn't quite on the same page as the others. That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun story. Really great characters. The first 3 or 4 volumes, basically when Brian K. Vaughan is writing it, it's the best.
I have this memorized. It's the first 18 issues.
Yeah. So, so you didn't read when he came back after that?
No, I didn't actually. I've only read the first 18 issues.
So you've just read the story that deals with their parents, and that's it.
Yes.
Okay, you should check out the next part. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
It's not as good as the first 18, but so you haven't read the stuff with Victor and all that.
What's that?
You haven't read the parts of where they introduced Victor.
No. Okay. I know the original 6.
All right, you should read the next 2 volumes that are also by Brian K. Vaughan.
Okay.
It's pretty good. Then after that, it kind of falls apart. The new series by, she's got a weird name, Rainbow something, isn't bad. It's the first time they've kind of gotten some of it right since Brian K. Vaughan left. basically the way Brian K. Vaughan ends it. I don't want to give away it kind of kills the heart of the team, and you really shouldn't continue past that point. And
That
Marvel,
that's that's what I felt, honestly. Like I was just like, this is a perfect 18 issues. And so like, do I need to keep going?
yeah, and it's weird. From what I understand, they made changes to the TV show and didn't quite follow. Because if you just made those first 18 issues into a 18 episode series,
Oh man, it would have been great.
it would have been perfect. And so I don't know why they made changes. It's missed opportunities of the MCU. That was last week. Runaways is definitely one of them. So
I mean, like, I think that speaks to Runaways that I forgot to even bring up the fact that they were in the MCU.
yeah. All right, so let's move on to number 5. Number 5.
The Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Now, like I said, speaking of the Sinister Six, because you said that you like the original Sinister Six and it got all, confusing and convoluted. That's kind of what I like about this Sinister Six team, the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Now, this team originated in Superior Spider-Man, and then Spencer would go on to write his own 17-issue run featuring Beetle, Boomerang, Speed Demon, Overdrive, and Shocker. Now, my favorite part about this Sinister Six team is that there are 5 members. Because I believe it was Living Brain. I believe he had died.
The machine, he looks like a vending machine or whatever.
Yeah, that
seems like Dr. Octopus co-opted him or something happened to him.
Yeah. But it mainly follows Fred Myers, Boomerang, and it almost kind of reminds me of Fraction's Hawkeye, where there's not really like an Avengers level threat or anything like that. It's almost just kind of like it's like a slice of life Sinister Six story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because it's almost like the Suicide Squad, but instead of the characters dying, it's just that people decide to leave because they get annoyed with Boomerang. And so the way it ends is, and we'll go ahead and say spoilers, but like if you read any of Spencer's run, you know about this. It ends with Boomerang in a bar, and the framing device behind the whole 17 issues is he's telling this story to somebody at a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks his name, and he says, "My name's Peter." And that's how Boomerang and Peter become roommates.
Yeah, I have not read this. I need to read this. I love Superior Spider-Man. And again, for the non-comic book readers out there, that's the storyline where Peter and Dr. Octopus switch bodies, and basically Peter, quote unquote, dies in Dr. Octopus's body, and so now Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man, and he's going to be the superior Spider-Man. He's going to be the best Spider-Man you could be. And for the most part, he is. He's really fun as Spider-Man.
It's my favorite thing that Dan Slott wrote.
We'll do an episode about Dan Slott one day. He used to be one of my favorite writers, and so I was at Ollie's Friday. I think it was Friday. And they had, I don't even know what it's called. Basically, his Clone Saga. They had the hardback of it at all.
Was that Clone Conspiracy?
Clone Conspiracy. Thank you. For like $16. I was like, oh, I could buy. I was like, oh wait, no, it's Dan Slott, and I was out. Which if you look at my bookshelf, I got a lot of Dan Slott books over there. His early stuff's wonderful, but his online presence has been reprehensible, and I just got to the point where I was like, I'm done. I cannot. Even though I know if I buy something from Ollie's, you won't get a dime from it. It's just the principle of the thing. I'm not buying it. So.
And then what was that? It wasn't the Marvel Legends thing, but the thing on Disney Plus where they're talking about Dan Slott and how he's like never on time. And they're kind of like dogging. They're like backhand dogging him.
Yeah, someone online said, "Who called the red alert on on Dan Slott?"
Yeah.
Because they were like, "We are going to destroy this man's career in 30 minutes." Yeah.
But enough about Slot. I could dog him all day. If you haven't read Superior Foes of Spider-Man, and honestly, I would recommend, like, if you're interested in Spencer's run, Spider-Man run, or if you read it and you liked it, pick this up. I think I think this is definitely better than his run, but I still really liked his run, barring some of that ending stuff.
Yeah, I have not got a chance to read Spencer's run yet, but I hear that basically he left early, didn't finish the run, but
That's how it always goes.
but editorial apparently may make some changes towards the end because it looks like the story's going one way, and again, that's a whole nother podcast. So, all right, on to my number 5, one of my favorite teams of all time. And that would be X Factor Investigations.
Okay.
Basically, back in the 90s when I started reading comic books, my friend would bring comic books to school, and we would swap comic books or whatever. And there's this team called X Factor, and there was a team that I knew nothing about, but I knew the comic book was hilarious. It was Multiple Man and Strong Guy and Havoc, Polaris and Wolfsbane. Very funny comic book. And then Peter David, the writer, who I love Peter David, he got into a fight with editorial, and they ran him off the title, and then they killed off Multiple Man and just ruined everything. That was the 90s. So then out of the House of M storyline, they brought it back. And now it's X Factor Investigations. They're like it's like a noir comic. It's funny. It's there's a lot of conspiracies going on. Just a lot going on. Jamie Madrox is a great character. Layla Miller, Butterfly from House of M, she's a great character because she knows things. That's all she ever says is, "Yeah, I know things." So just a really fun run. I have not read all of it, but I've read quite a bit of it. It's on my list of things to get back to finish reading it. So we were so excited that Multiple Man was going to be in X-Men 3, and they just totally ruined his character. So
Hey! He served the plot in that one scene.
In that one scene, yeah.
He got them in the forest for some reason.
Right. Yeah. So this would be a perfect Disney Plus series. Just these mutant PIs solving mutant crimes and mutant mysteries. I really hope we get this. I'm actually very excited for, I don't know what you would call it, the summer Comic-Con or next Disney whatever day where they announce the new projects.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're going to get a lot of X-Men announcements this year, and I'm hoping this is one of them.
Like post Multiverse of Madness, I think.
Yeah, I think that them putting Xavier in the trailer is like them saying, "Okay, we're getting to the mutants. Just hang tight. We got to get through Doctor Strange, and then we'll announce our plans."
I still can't believe that movie's only 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in that movie. I'm excited. I'm worried. We'll see. All right, that was number 5. Let's get on to Caleb's number 4. Let me switch back over here. All right. So this one's kind of a cheat, but we don't care. It's our list.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I loved this show growing up. Whenever I was a kid, we had this channel that doesn't exist anymore, but it still kind of does. It was called Toon Disney.
Yes, Toon Disney.
And this would play at like 9:30 p.m. or something like that. And I just loved watching Spider-Man: His Amazing Friends. I always thought it was really fun. As a kid, I was kind of like, oh, what's Iceman doing with Spider-Man? That's a weird pairing. And who's Firestar? Which as far as I can tell, whenever this show came out, people were like, "Who's Firestar?"
Yeah, so I think if I recall correctly, they made her for the show, and then they introduced her in X-Men around that time.
Yeah,
And she was part of the Hellions, the Hellfire Club's version of the New Mutants.
Which I would say my favorite episode probably is the origin of Firestar episode. That's one of my favorites. Now, another thing that I think is worthy of being brought up is they have had the Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends in comic books. I believe it was actually, so it was an Ultimate Spider-Man story arc. I believe it was actually just called Amazing Friends, which is a great name, where the origin of Firestar is actually, it's Liz Allen who's Firestar.
Oh, you're talking about the Ultimate Universe?
Yeah. I think the story arc was called Amazing Friends, which is cool.
Yeah. I think I've got that one. I think that's one of the trades I got after Ultimatum. That's like the only one I got. So Spider-Man Amazing Friends, great cartoon. I get this one mixed up with like the X-Men cartoon prior to the X-Men, the pilot they did.
With the Australian Wolverine.
Yeah, because I know the X-Men are on an episode of Spider-Man's Amazing Friends.
That's the Firestar episode.
Yeah, so I get those mixed up in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marvel's got some interesting old cartoons. I was just thinking maybe we'll do a list 1 month where it's the top 10.
Oh yeah,
Marvel animated series.
I could definitely do that. You know what's funny? I was actually on Disney Plus because I actually have been watching the show again lately on Disney Plus. They actually have a newer one called Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which is, it's kind of like a chibi version of everyone, and it's Ghost Spider, Kid Arachnid, and Spider-Man.
So it's like Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it's like Spider-Verse and His Amazing Friends.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. I just noticed it whenever I looked up Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It definitely seems like it's one of those, for younger children, like 4 or 5 year olds. But I don't know. It looks kind of cool.
And don't knock all those cartoons there for little kids. They did, what was it, Marvel Superhero Squad?
I love that one.
Got into that one. They did some really funny stuff on there. When they went to like the alternate dimensions, on a little kids cartoons, and they would do like Days of Future Past with Old Man Magneto with his walker and stuff.
And even then, they did some serious stuff. They did the Infinity Sword.
It's like it's like Playmobil little toys doing the Infinity Gauntlet.
and like you get attached to, and I watched a lot of Superhero Squad because I was probably like 15 at the time, but
yeah, I was watching my kids when they were little, and
I didn't have kids.
That
was just me. But like you get attached to Silver Surfer, and then like he's the bad guy of the second season. But yeah, Spider-Man is making Amazing Friends. I had to mention them.
All right, so my number 4. I don't know if you're familiar with this team or not. This is Wolverine and the X-Men was the name of the comic book. They're basically X-Men. But this was a team that kind of spun out of Uncanny X-Force. I love this team. I don't know. Can you name anybody on the screen right now?
Let's see. We have King Shark.
Girl.
That is, I think that's Tombstone.
Right.
Is that the mutant leader with the mohawk from Dark Knight Returns?
Okay, so this kind of spun out of X-Men Schism, where the team split up, and Wolverine decided he was going to reopen the school. It never quite made sense why Wolverine was the one, but he's like, you know what? I'm going to reopen the school. We can't keep putting these kids on the front line. I'm going to train them how to be X-Men. So he opened the Jean Grey School for Learning or whatever.
Oh, so
Yeah.
this was like, alongside the Utopia stuff?
Yes, this is
Okay.
the other storyline going on.
So that's the X-Men stuff that I guess whenever Schism happened, I followed Cyclops.
See, and I followed Wolverine. I didn't read the Cyclops stuff. So this is a Jason Aaron book. It's a lot of fun. So the girl at the top, she wasn't in it much. I won't talk about her, but the kid right below her, the one that's got the gray face, that is Kid Apocalypse or Genesis. He is a child version of Apocalypse, and they're trying to raise him to be a good guy. And he's like this sweet, innocent kid, and you're like, this is going to become Apocalypse. And he doesn't like violence and all this stuff. And they do a story where Deathlock comes to be a substitute teacher at the school. And he's telling everybody their futures based on the probabilities, and he gets to him and just kind of freaks out. Like his brain shuts down. So that's a lot of fun. The guy on the right with the red mohawk is Kid Gladiator. He's the Gladiator's son from the Shi'ar Empire. He's a hothead and a punk, and he doesn't want to be there. He thinks he's better than everybody else. The pink-haired kid with the machine gun, that's Kid Omega from the Morrison run.
Oh, yeah.
He is an awesome character. I love him. A lot of people hate him, but you're supposed to hate him.
Right.
He's the one that he's constantly getting on Wolverine's nerves, but you know that one day he's going to become a cool hero. He's just not there yet. Then you got Eye-Boy in the middle. I never really cared for Eye-Boy, the blonde hair. But Brew is right there below Kid Omega. He's a little kid Brood that is a mutant because he's non-violent compared to the other ones. He doesn't have the same violent tendencies. So he's like a super genius. Okay. Really funny. And then you have Idie. She was one of the main characters in X-Men Schism. Basically, the reason the school was created. Because she was forced to do some stuff, kill some people and stuff. And Wolverine's like, okay, this is enough. We can't have these kids killing people. We got to train them in schools. Wolverine does not know what he's doing as a teacher. And the Beast has turned the entire school into a danger room. So you could be like going to the bathroom, and also the danger room sequence will kick on, and you're like, oh crap. Lava's rising up out of the floor and stuff. You're just freaking out. Just a fun comic book. I know a lot of people didn't like it because they're like, "Oh, Wolverine's not a teacher. Oh, why are you making him into Dad Wolverine or whatever?" I don't care. It's a fun story. It has you'll see us a lot in this and in Astonishing Wolverine Spider-Man. You can tell that Jason Aaron loved the X-Men. Like he keeps bringing up stuff like the Siege Perilous and stuff from old stories. And one storyline, you find out Mystique has started her own rival school, and you got these other mutants and stuff. It's a lot of fun, and like their school is a mirror image to the Wolverine school. So you have like Sabretooth teaching class, or was it Wendigo? They have these weird teachers and stuff that made no sense, and it's a little silly at times, but it's a lot of fun. And you'll notice a lot of my comic books I like when things get a little silly. Like I don't want silly all the time, but every once in a while I'm fine if things get a little silly. So
yeah,
they're comic books. if you look at old comics from the 60s, it was all based on silliness, so I'm all for that. So all right, so let's get on to Caleb's number 3.
Yeah, with the Runaways.
Which we talked about earlier, but the Runaways, again, is a great series. If you have not checked it out, please do. Yeah. The early stuff by Brian K. Vaughan is awesome.
For me, the Runaways all comes down to Alex Wilder. That is why I love the Runaways, and that's why I vehemently despise the TV show, because they butcher Alex Wilder. But
when I saw the cast, they just did not look right for the show. That's why I never really gave it a chance. I was like, Molly looks too old. Gertie doesn't look right, and So
Yeah, and they went too far with like the emo and Nico.
yeah,
um, Chase, they kind of got right. It's kind of hard to get that character wrong.
yeah.
But yeah, I love the Runaways. I love Alex Wilder as a character, super interesting. But yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on this.
Yeah, for me, my favorite character was Alex was great, but I loved Gertie's kind of the heart of the team.
Yeah,
Um, she's a lot of fun. So, so let's get to my number 3, if I can make this work correctly. But yeah, Runaways. If you have not read Runaways again, I highly, highly recommend it.
I
It
read it on
will.
a whim. Like I don't know why I read it, but I had Marvel Unlimited at the time, and I just saw it, and it looked interesting. They look kind of like the Teen Titans, I guess.
Yeah. So my I'm trying to remember which picture we used last time. So I'm trying to use the other picture. Was that the same picture I used last time? I'll
Yeah.
switch it. There we go. My number 3 is Guardians of the Galaxy. When they announced this movie was coming out, everybody's like, "This is gonna be the worst thing ever." I was like, "Oh no! If they follow this comic book, it's gonna be awesome." And for the most part, they did. I mean, James Gunn changed some things up, changed Star Lord around stuff, but for the most part, um, it's pretty accurate. It does feature my favorite Marvel character, Adam Warlock. Um, so I was, really big on it. It takes some crazy twists and turns if you read the whole thing. Half the team gets killed in one issue and stuff. It's wild. Um, so it's really great, and I wish that I know Abnett Lanning, the writers, they split up, but Abnett is still working on stuff. I wish they would bring him back as a permanent writer, but I know he was like doing other stuff, like writing the Guardians of the Galaxy video game and stuff. So,
Yeah, I still haven't played it, but it looks really good.
man, I've had it since Black Friday. It's just sitting there. I have not had a chance to play it. I really want to play it. The one thing that makes me hesitant about it is your decisions have consequences. So I know I'd be like playing it over and over and feel like,
Right.
oh, I made the wrong decision and stuff. And so, all right, we're getting down to our finals here. So next on Caleb's list, his number 2.
The Astonishing X-Men. My exposure to the Astonishing X-Men was, do you remember whenever Marvel was releasing like those motion comics on like DVD?
Yes.
So they did all of Whedon's run. And so I've actually never read it. I just watched the 4 motion comics of Whedon's run.
Mhm.
I have discovered that I love X-Men the most when Kitty Pryde is your like viewpoint character.
She's a great character, and it's weird that the movies have never used her correctly. I really hope they fix that in the MCU.
Yeah. Um, but no, it's super interesting. There is I believe this is one of the origins of the the Cure storyline.
Yeah, the one they used at X-Men 3 was based on this comic book.
Yeah. But yeah, the first I believe the first storyline is Dangerous, and that is where no, Gifted. The second issue is the second storyline is Dangerous. They're like trapped in the
Danger Room.
Danger Room, which I don't know if that had ever been done before.
The Danger Room is always going crazy before it's actually them be trapped inside. I can't think of a storyline where they did it before that.
Yeah, but that's an interesting one, and then it kind of becomes like an alien invasion story, and it's a really cool character piece. Honestly, you could just call this book Kitty Pryde. and or Kitty Pryde and Friends. It's just like everyone else is kind of taking a backseat because this book really is about her, and it's got a great ending, especially for Kitty.
So hopping back to Wolverine the X-Men real quick, I forgot about this. Kitty Pryde's one of the main teachers there.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of stories about Kitty. Her dating Iceman is really awesome, and then Brian Michael Bendis happens and totally ruins that book. He decides, Kitty, you can't write her anymore, and just ruins everything. And that's when that comic book actually goes downhill, is once Brian Michael Bendis enters the X-Men scene. So anyhow, yeah, this is a great run. I love this run. It's a lot of fun. Colossus had been dead for quite some time when the story started, so to see him return was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so my number 2, and I'm kind of surprised. Well, I guess I'm not surprised it's not on your list. The Fantastic Four, because I think you've told me in the past you're not a huge Fantastic Four guy.
I just haven't had the right exposure yet.
Fantastic Four is awesome, and their movies make me sad. There's so much opportunity to just tell an amazing story, and they just never quite get it right. It's really just a team. It's really a family story. So it's about a family that, everything got screwed up. They got powers, but they're making the best of it. And they're explorers. They're constantly finding that, this new area. They're constantly exploring the Marvel universe, discovering things like the Inhumans or the Negative Zone or just different things. Just a really fun team. Really, the characters, their dynamics, everything, the way they interact, it's just awesome. And I could have really put this as Fantastic Four / the Fantastic. What do they call it? No, the Future Foundation.
Future Foundation is like my only exposure to Fantastic Four. Like I really didn't pay attention until they killed Johnny Storm.
Yeah. And that kind of ties into Annihilation, actually. It's kind of like an unofficial sequel to all the stuff that happened in Abbott Landing's storyline. So
is there a specific run on Fantastic Four that comes to mind, or?
So I have not read the classic Stan Lee, Jack Kirby stuff. Everybody says that that's like one of the greatest runs of all time because
I've read the Galactus trilogy and that's it.
Because they were like firing on all cylinders. They were like, Galactus trilogy, Black Panther, Inhumans, like the stuff they were creating was like just like every issue they just knocked it out of the park. The John Byrne stuff is really good. I've read some of that. The Mark Waid, at least the first 3 volumes, I think it goes for like 5 or 6 volumes. The first 3 volumes are really good. I think, was it Matt Draper or somebody just did a video about that story? It's just really cool. It's like Doctor Doom crosses some lines and really goes after Richards and the family. So Reed kind of like overreacts in dealing with Doctor Doom, and it costs the team really dearly.
Oh,
That's
wow.
all I'll kind of say. And though it's kind of like, I'm trying not to spoil it, but it's like the Fantastic Four exploring hell and then exploring heaven. It's really cool. Yeah, the Fantastic Four is awesome. All the stuff by Hickman, the Hickman run is really good. That's where you got all the Future Foundation, and then that eventually gets to Secret Wars. It kind of jumps over to Avengers and then Secret Wars, which Secret Wars is basically the end of the Fantastic Four storyline that he started. So
yeah.
So
yeah, Fantastic. It's just one of those that I haven't had like the proper exposure to. I'm sure it's like Fantastic Four for me is what Superman is for other people, because I love Superman, but people tend to call Superman lame, and I'm just like, oh well, you gotta read the right stuff.
Right. Yeah, Fantastic Four is just like that. And to me, you don't, if you don't have Fantastic Four, in the Marvel universe, then the Marvel universe just doesn't feel right. They are like the centerpiece. More so, Spider Man, the Fantastic Four are like the center of the Marvel universe, and I'm really looking forward to them being introduced into the MCU, because then it'll be like, okay, now this universe is complete. Now that you have the Fantastic Four added in. All right, so our number ones, we will do Caleb's first. So this is a title I probably should have put on my list somewhere, and I just didn't. But why don't you take it away, Caleb?
My number one is Mark Millar's The Ultimates. I love The Ultimates. I think that this might be one of, if not my favorite stories that has ever been put out by Marvel. Now that's not, and here's the thing. Whenever I say that, I don't want anything else to be like this. This is a very dark, grim, almost depressing at times.
Black Widow shoots Jarvis in the head.
Yes. So I don't need this all the time, but I love the Ultimates. In fact, Ultimates and Ultimates 2, both 12-issue story arcs. So it's almost like a 24-issue origin story for the Avengers, because by the end of Ultimates 2, you can kind of just start telling Avengers stories, because at first they are sanctioned by the government. And it's super interesting because you've got Betty Brant, kind of like, she's a scientist, but also kind of their publicist. And like, how do you sell Giant Man toys if he's a wife beater? You know,
right? I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
And the interesting thing that I find about this, is this Ultimates 2 ruined me, because I had been waiting from her first appearance all the way to probably Civil War. I'm like, okay, so when's Black Widow gonna like betray them? When's it gonna happen? I've been waiting the whole time in the MCU, and it never happened.
You're talking about the MCU, yeah.
No. In the MCU, I was waiting for them. No, I didn't think that she'd betray them in Civil War there. But yeah, from Iron Man 2 to Civil War, I'm just like, okay, so she's a bad guy. She's gonna betray them at some point. This rendition of Thor and Loki is one of my favorites, because up until probably the last 20 pages of Ultimates 2, you are not ever sure if he's crazy or not.
Yeah. you are not sure with Thor. He keeps seeing Loki everywhere, and they're like, and then Loki just kind of decides to ruin everybody, ruin the whole team. And say what you will about this comic. This comic is written by Mark Millar. Mark Millar is a little bit controversial, but he's so important to the MCU. If you did not have this comic book, you don't have the MCU.
Yes.
This is basically the Avengers that they based. The MCU Avengers are basically based off this comic book.
Yeah. This is where the Chitauri come from.
Yeah.
Which are the Chitauri are just Ultimate Scrolls. In a sense, I think they eventually introduced Ultimate Scrolls, but for the most part, another thing that I find interesting is Tony. The Tony Steve dynamic is kind of reversed, where like Tony is kind of the idealistic one, while Captain America is kind of broody, and I find that really interesting. I feel like these two would be on opposite sides in the Civil War, reversed sides, because I feel like Ultimate Tony is the one who would be like, no, I'm not giving anything to the government. I'm not doing anything. And then this Captain America is very much the we do whatever the government says.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great series. It's important. Again, Mark Millar, I know people give him a lot of crap, but I mean, he gave us this. He gave us Civil War. So many things that have influenced the MCU.
I believe Civil War was actually going to be Ultimates 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Civil War was originally going to be in the Ultimate Universe, but then they decided to put it in 616.
And at this point in the comic books, nobody cared about the Avengers. It was all X-Men in the comic books. This was the book that kind of put Avengers back on the map, saying, hey, this is actually a pretty cool team. And this kind of changed the game for Marvel. It was super important for them.
Yeah, and they had that Ultimate Avengers animated movie, which very loosely, very, very loosely based on this.
I forgot that existed. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of helped too. You know, getting the Avengers in the public eye, especially for me, because I was probably like 10 when that movie came out. I didn't know who the Avengers were. I knew who Iron Man was, but that was about it.
Yeah, the comic books at that time were terrible. The quality had dropped so bad on Avengers.
Was that around the time of
live stream? Do what?
Was that around the time of Disassembled?
This was before Disassembled.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we could do a stream about Avengers one day. Because with the exception of this, Avengers is not really on either of our lists.
Yeah.
So, my number one is my absolute favorite team of all time, the X-Men. Not any particular period, just the X-Men in general. Just one of the greatest comic book teams of all time. Claremont's run is legendary.
Yes, absolutely.
I just actually finished reading all of that last year. He took a team from the 60s that nobody cared about and just reinvented everything and made it the hottest comic book of almost all time, I would say. What's funny is people don't remember that during the late 80s, and maybe I guess in the early 90s, the two most popular comic books were X-Men and Teen Titans.
Yes.
Like Teen Titans, people forget how popular that was at one time. And it's kind of sad that neither of those titles are as popular as they once were. I'm hoping X-Men can get there again. I hope they were during this recent Krakoa era that they've started, where they live on Krakoa now. They've screwed that all up.
I have no idea where that's going. Like, I couldn't even begin to make a guess.
They start out this really cool premise about the survival of mutants and how they're going to all have to band together on this island, and this is their last chance to get it right. And then it turned into, let's have Hellfire Galas where it's a tea party, and the writers are completely wrong on the title now. Hickman has abandoned ship. Maybe he will come back at some point to tell part 3 of the story, but I have zero hope. I basically, when Inferno was announced, I said I'm done, and I have washed my hands of the X-Men currently. But classic X-Men is awesome. Basically, if you start from the Claremont run and go through, I'd say like Operation Zero Tolerance, that's just like a perfect run of X-Men. And then you could kind of pick up again with the Morrison run, the Whedon run, Schism. And then you can read like Utopia and Wolverine X-Men up until Bendis starts messing everything up. And then just kind of quit X-Men. It's fine. But
So
Yeah.
so I'm gonna say that you're not a fan of All New, All Different.
Which one was? Because they've
That's what
used that.
that's whenever Bendis brings the
Oh,
original five.
I liked it when it started. It was
Okay.
fine when it first started. Around the time Kitty Pryde joined up with them and became like their mentor, and then they like started hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. That's when it all kind of went to heck.
No, yeah. You mentioned Kitty Pryde.
Hmm.
I always have to bring this up um, because it doesn't make any sense. Um, there's a point whenever Kitty Pryde is teaching Jean how to use like um, her powers, um, like her telekinesis and her telepathy and all that. And uh, Jean says, how did you learn all this?" And then Kitty says, "Well, I learned from you." Like it's supposed to be like this big, like emotional scene where Kitty learns from Jean Grey, and then Kitty teaches this young Jean Grey. But by the time Kitty had really taken foot in the X-Men, I believe Jean had already died, and these characters have no history, so um, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that now. Like, when have they ever interacted? I know
No, these characters have no history.
I did not even catch that. But yeah, because by the time Kitty joins, Jean is dead. She eventually. I'm trying to remember if when Madeline Pryor showed up, was Kitty still on the team?
No,
But even that's not
no,
Jean.
she left.
And then X Factor when Jean came back, they don't really have a history of Excalibur. I'm trying to
No,
think of any crossovers. I don't think they ever interacted.
no, they've never had anything, and it's. I've always thought it was really funny.
Oh, that's like I said, we could do a whole show about Bendis. When he brought back the Guardians of the Galaxy, it made zero sense from what had gone on before. He's like, "Oh, they're back. Don't worry about Drax dying and Star Lord being lost to the Cancerverse and Nova being, don't worry about that. Thanos, who cares?" And then eventually, I think the pressure of you have to tell a story. So he did like a flashback. Oh, here's what happened, and it made no sense. It was just like, Bendis, and he's done that a couple of times where he has taken other people's dangling plot lines and just screwed them up completely. He did that with a lot of Brian K. Vaughan's characters, of like the Cloak and not the Cloak. What was his name? The Hood.
Oh yeah,
And
the Hood.
some of the Runaway stuff he screwed up. It's like he didn't understand what was being set up and just did his own thing, and it just totally. Anyhow, this is not a Bendis bashing podcast. Live stream tonight. X-Men, it became really popular in the 90s when I was really first getting into comic books. The cartoon had just hit. Everybody loved the X-Men. It was great. Me personally, let me ask you this: who's your favorite character of the X-Men?
My favorite
You have
character.
one?
My favorite character of the X-Men. So Magneto is too easy. I'd probably have to go with Cyclops. Just because, and whenever I say Cyclops, like he's definitely got that always listen to Xavier Boy Scout thing, and he had that for quite a few years. But then whenever like Avengers versus X-Men happened, which Avengers versus X-Men is actually another one of my favorite crossovers. That's my Civil War. um, there's this point whenever you're a teenager or a young adult, and you kind of have to realize that your parents are not these all-knowing beings, and they don't have all the answers, and they mess up just as much as you do.
Uh-huh.
And so when Cyclops has to go through that with Xavier, and then as a part of the Phoenix Five, he kills Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
That's super powerful.
Yeah. Cyclops is one of those characters I did not like when I was a kid, but now he's definitely up there as one of my favorites, because when you really look at X-Men overall, it's kind of the story of Cyclops and Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Like most of the plots are around them, and so when the movies don't quite get that right, it's always kind of weird. My favorite character, and it didn't used to be, is actually Rogue. I think Rogue is
cool.
Fascinating character. Just, I don't like now that she's cured of being able to touch people. I like it more when she can't touch people, and it's, she's just like tortured, and but she's a cool character. She's a leader. Just really great character. So that's my number one X-Men, arguably one of the greatest comic teams of all time. So
I think I think objectively they probably are the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely up there for what they did to the comic industry. Like they definitely kept Marvel running. At a time when other titles like Avengers and Fantastic Four were not working, X-Men really picked up the slack and brought in the sales and everything. So, all right. So that was our top 10 list. We'll be doing that once a month. That was a lot of fun. So our final segment is we do a segment called He Made Me Do It. Last week, Caleb asked me to watch The Other Guys. And
how did you enjoy this?
So, as I stated previously, I had really only seen like the first 10 minutes previously, up to spoilers where Samuel Jackson and The Rock die. It is still one of the funniest scenes in movie history of Aim for the Bushes, and I'm just
Aim for the Bushes
jumping off of a building. I was not expecting to enjoy the rest of the film as much as I did. Look, he's flying is one of the funniest lines I have ever heard. Just his delivery, and this how it kind of comes out of nowhere. It's so funny.
Me and my friends will reference like, yeah, people are starting to murmur. They're saying that you can't do it. Well, I say you can.
It's the way Will Ferrell says it. Like he's like, it's like a moment of what's the word? Like he's astonished. Like, oh my gosh, look, he's flying.
Yeah.
It's just, I did think the movie was a little heavy-handed with this message about capitalists are evil, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But all that TARP stuff was happening around the time this movie came out, so I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. I'm surprised they didn't do the one joke more times, make a running joke of what was her name, Christina or whatever. Her and her husband just chasing them everywhere. I'm surprised they didn't go like at the edge, still chasing them.
I think my favorite gag is probably Gamble's wife, which is like you come in here dressed like a hobo.
Like a hobo, yeah.
Oh man, it's my favorite. Like he.
The fact that he's a pimp, but he doesn't realize it.
Right? He's a pimp. And he's like, wait, I was doing my residency, and he came in with poison ivy on his rectum. It's like, well, it's like that one Meg Ryan movie. She's got mail.
The other two jokes I liked was when they were just in a bar. He had to keep breaking out into what was it, Scottish song or
like
whatever,
like an Irish drinking song.
Irish drinking song. And the song was getting more and more ridiculous.
Yeah,
that and when the bad guy kept bribing them with tickets,
right?
They just kept going to the shows. They're like, he did it again.
So what you were right about Jersey Boys? Wow.
Then at the end, he's like, "You want to go see Rock of Ages? I'm out of tickets, okay?"
I know it's not ideal, but Rock of Ages.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely funnier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. Yeah, definitely one I would be watching again.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have to mention Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, you
Oh,
forget how awesome Michael Keaton is, and then every scene he's just kind of still on the show.
yeah. And, like, how do you not know that you're referencing TLC? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. At the end, where he thinks that Will Ferrell's dying, and he's
Yeah.
all, "Remember, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep." And then when he's getting up, he like
He's
leans on him. He's
dying.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun comedy. My son and I were discussing today how they don't make great comedies anymore. And this was definitely one of them. I think this was like 2010.
Yeah, 2007.
But it's been a while. I think a lot of people, when I bring it up, will mention Free Guy, which I haven't seen yet. But
you know what? I just watched that on like Thursday. I really liked it.
yeah. So, but I was showing my son clips from Dirty Work, saying, "Look how funny this movie is," and I'm like, they don't make movies like this anymore, So yeah, funny movie. You haven't seen Other Guys? I would definitely recommend it. Check it out. So for this week, I'm going to give Caleb something to read, and we kind of discussed it a little bit earlier, but that would be Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine by Jason Aaron. It's basically a buddy cop movie.
Okay.
They are being forced to work together. They hate each other, and then they have that moment where they kind of understand each other. Which, speaking of best panels of all time, that is when Wolverine finally understands Spider-Man. It is one of the best panels. Kubert really nails that panel where you'll see it when you read it. You'll get it. It's a 6-issue limited series. The less I say about it, the better. We'll discuss it next week.
Yeah.
But it kind of just throws you in the middle of an adventure, and it just goes. And like I said, they don't like each other. You don't quite know how they got where they're at first.
So it just starts like in the middle?
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. It's Peter Parker and a bunch of cavemen, and you're like, what is happening? So, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything else about it. But like I said earlier, Jason Aaron likes to reference weird or have weird ideas, like silly concepts.
I love Jason Aaron.
This book has a lot of those. So yeah, I definitely can't wait to hear your opinions on this. This is for me is a very underrated story that a lot of people do not talk about.
Yeah, I've never heard of it actually. Like until you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's almost like a prequel to Wolverine and the X-Men. It's kind of some of the storylines they set up in this carry over into that.
Okay.
But it's a lot of fun. I know a lot of people. I don't know. Well, we could talk about Jason Aaron one night. I like a lot of his early stuff, but some of the later stuff is not as great. But that kind of happens with everybody at Marvel.
Yeah.
I
like his Thor.
Yeah, his Thor, from what I've read, is pretty good. So
he's got a good. He did the Star Wars stuff, like the Skywalker Strikes, and pretty much like the Marvel Disney era Star Wars comic books that take place between A New Hope and Empire. That's him.
Those are sitting on my shelf. I have never read them. I picked them all from Ollie's. They've just been sitting there forever.
It's good.
Cool. So next week, as I mentioned earlier, for the most part, we didn't pick Avengers. I feel like Ultimates isn't really. I mean, it is Avengers, but it's not really classic Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought for next week, the question we're going to ask is, what would be the ideal team and scenario to make you read Avengers? So I want us to pick 7 characters and what the scenario is for those characters to come together that would get you reading Avengers.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, so that will be next week's topic. I think it'll be a lot of fun. The characters you pick do not have to be. They could be characters that have never been on the Avengers ever. Hero, villain, whatever. So I think that's a fun topic. So we will do that next week. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's top 10 list. We will definitely be doing a top 10 every month. This was the first one. I thought it was a lot of fun. As you can see, me and Caleb have very different tastes, although
Yes.
they did overlap some of Guardians of the Galaxy and Runaways. And it's fun for me to hear about teams I've never considered, like Shadowland or Superior Foes. So I hope you learned about some teams you didn't know about. I don't know why I still have other guys on the screen.
Well, I mean, like Spider-Man and Wolverine at this point, like with the big three being Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, Spider-Man and Wolverine are Marvel's other guys.
Yeah, when they used to be the guys.
Yeah.
So
I remember the big three was Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Hulk.
yeah. Man, the 90s were so different.
Back in my day.
With the 90s, like the hot titles were Punisher, Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Spider-Man. It's just weird how it changes what everybody's into. It just takes kind of like one bad run to just kill a character.
Yeah, or a bad movie.
That we'll jot this down. One night we'll pick like 10 Marvel characters and pick their greatest runs and their worst runs.
Okay, yeah,
that might be fun. So
yeah.
All right, so I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. We will be back next Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern right here on YouTube. Until then, I've been Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
Talk to you then. Bye.
See ya.